as trainers, if you're doing any type of sports performance training, the main purpose of this machine, the VertiMax, is to allow an athlete to train at higher velocities with light loads to develop what has recently been coined speed strength. One of the most important fundamental things all trainers should recognize is that strength does not equal explosiveness. Strength is a measurement of how much force an athlete can generate, an absolute force measurement, whereas power is time comes into the measurement. Power is a measure of rate of force development, whereas strength is more of a maximal force output. When people do a max bench, max squat, no one ever times how long it takes to get the bar up, right? They don't care. They just how much force can you generate. And the problem is, in a lot of sports, we got a lot of coaches that focus on strength production, and they develop strength. But when you develop strength by doing slow motion, heavy lifts, neurologically, you're not asking your body to generate force at maximal rate every time you do a repetition. And it's basically Darwinism. Our bodies adapt to how we train. If you train slow moving with heavy weights all the time, and you're not asking your muscles to generate force at a super high velocity, neurologically your brain is not going to optimize the efficiency of rapid force production. Does that make sense? You're basically training yourself to lift heavy weights slowly. Olympic lifts is an exception to that rule. Of course, Olympic lifts are all designed to be explosive lifts, but a lot of those Olympic lifts you're coasting through a large range of motion. This device is designed to apply a load to the full range of the motion. Elastic bands are real popular now because they can put a light load on the athlete and there's no mass. And that's key when you want to accelerate quickly with the load. You can't have a lot of mass. If you're trying to accelerate heavy weights, like on a rack with a cable, you just can't explode into that motion because you got to accelerate the weight of the weights and their mass, both those things. With the elastic band, you don't have to do that. But one of the major drawbacks with an elastic band is the fact that, one of the more really common exercises athletes do now is they will strap an elastic band between their ankles and do that shuffle drill, right? Well, every time you do that drill, if I'm going to fire my abductor and I begin that initial movement, there's really not much of a load on my abductor because the band is slack, right? But once you start getting it out here, the band starts tightening. For any explosive movement, you want a useful load applied at the beginning of that initial contraction. For instance, a lot of the elastic band systems that athletes use, they tie the bands to the platform surface, right? So when an athlete hooks them up in squats, what happens to the bands? They go slack, right? And when an athlete initiates that explosive movement, they've got very little load. And of course, as they get into the movement, the load increases radically, it disrupts balance, and it also hinders acceleration as that resistance is radically increasing because we got a really short band that we're trying to stretch a lot. What the VertiMax does with every band, all the bands retract in a pulley system. So the key here is, once you set the resistance by extracting the bands out of the cam cleats underneath and on top of the platform, all 8 bands have their own adjustment cam cleat. Once you set that and you hook it up to an athlete, the great thing about this, which is very hard to appreciate until you try it, is when I hook up and I go into a squatted position, I feel the same load here as I do when my feet leave the ground. And that's really important for 2 reasons. A, when we jump, gravity doesn't change, right? It stays constant. So it helps with our balance. We don't have a rapidly varying force acting on us, increasing as we're trying to jump. There's also a tracking system in here that allows the cords to track with the athlete when they move on the platform, which keeps the resistance more pulling straight down, just like gravity. And the whole key about training with 100% effort when you're doing explosive training, going back to muscle physiology, you have your slow twitch, your fast twitch A, and your fast twitch B. One of the most common misconceptions that people have, when you do an explosive movement, they go, oh, that's fast twitch. When you do an explosive movement, you're firing everything, okay? From 0 to 30% effort, you activate a lot of the slow twitch. Eating soup, holding a spoon, standing erect, slow twitch. When you get above 30% effort, you start firing slow twitch and fast twitch type A, okay? And once you go above 70%, your brain starts recruiting fast twitch type B, which is our most explosive, fastest contracting muscle fiber. So what happens is, when you're an athlete testing strength and you're not moving at all, you're really testing the strength of all 3 fiber types firing, okay? As velocity increases, as a muscle contraction increases, the slow twitch can no longer keep up with the muscle contraction velocity. My analogy here is if you've got a cart and you've got 3 boys pushing a cart and the cart stopped. I got a 5-year-old, which we'll call my Sammy slow twitch, a 10-year-old who's my fast twitch type A, we'll call him the medium twitch, Michael. He can run 10 miles per hour. Sammy slow twitch can run 5 miles per hour. Then you got Freddie fast twitch that can run 15 miles per hour. Everyone with me? When you tell those athletes to begin pushing that cart and you say go, all 3 of those athletes can contribute to pushing that cart, right? To accelerating it. That's what happens when you jump. That's what happens when you do any explosive motion. But as the muscle contraction velocity increases, or the velocity of that cart exceeds 5 miles per hour, what happens? Little Sammy slow twitch can't run that fast, right? He can only run 5 miles per hour. Once it hits 6 miles per hour, he can't apply any more force to that cart. It just leaves him. He lets go. He can't push anymore. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about a slow twitch being irrelevant when a muscle contraction velocity gets to a certain velocity and exceeds the speed at which the muscle can contract. So something you want to focus on when you want to develop speed, or what we call high-speed strength, is that it's very important to understand that as an athlete begins moving faster, different motor units apply. At slow velocity, everything applies. At higher velocity, slow twitch drops off, then medium twitch or fast twitch type A becomes less effective. And as a trainer, what you want to do is have the brain basically recruiting and firing as effectively as possible all 3 motor units for as high as velocity as possible, from 0 to max velocity. And high-speed light load training is the way you do that. And what we're missing a lot in sports is we focus an awful lot on the heavy lifting, and we don't do enough of the light load high speed, and you wind up with a lot of really strong athletes that are slow. Just go to any football field in the United States of America any Friday night, they're a dime a dozen. But the guy with the 35-inch vertical, which is a pure power measurement, that guy is never slow. He's always quick. He may not have a fast 100-meter, but he's quick on his feet. He can develop force quickly. So that's the main concept with this machine. Apply light load, apply it consistently to the full range of the motion. You don't want it varying throughout the motion, and we'll show you